What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here for another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, a special Wednesday edition of the show, as I'm joined by a first-time guest on the podcast, Kurt Haumesser of BuffaloRumblings.com, as well as Primetime Sports Talk's Laces Out podcast, which is featured on Fan 590 radio station. You can follow Kurt on Twitter at Kurt Haumesser, Kurt Haumesser 88. Kurt, thank you so much for joining me on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast.
Absolutely, my friend. I've been waiting. I've been excited to join this, so I'm glad. Anytime I get a chance to talk Bills football, I'll be here. My podcast is, a lot of just NFL stuff, so I'm glad I can hone in on just the Buffalo Bills today and ahead of a big week.
Especially after that Monday Night Football victory. I mean, I'm smiling ear to ear over that victory and seeing what took place with Josh Allen just having a day. Kurt, where does that game, Monday Night Football the other day, where does that rank in terms of, Josh Allen's best games for you?
I think of when you think of Josh Allen, and especially when I think of him, there's really, I guess now this is the third key game that stands out for me. Number one is that Vikings game. He was the young guy coming in. We didn't really know what we had. And just some of the plays, he didn't look outstanding, but some of the plays was just like, whoa, okay, this guy might be legit. And you go to the next year and you got Dallas, Thanksgiving. I was petrified that game, I'll admit, going Thanksgiving to America's team. And he just showed out. I mean, I don't have to explain it. Bills Mafia knows. We all saw it. And then I think this was the next game. They're sitting at 8-3. One of the best years in the past 20 years of Bills football. There's a lot of hype and there's a lot of, you never know. These 49ers are a little sneaky. So I was a little nervous coming in here. But, I mean, again, Josh Allen just comes in, shows that he loves to play on prime time. And really, from a performance standpoint, I think I have to put this game against the 49ers as his first number one best game I've seen in Josh Allen's career. I mean, just the things he did. Over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns against, the 49ers defense is a little beat up, yes, but they still have a great coaching staff. They still have a lot of talent on that team, and he didn't skip a beat. I mean, he made maybe the only mistake in that game that wasn't even made by him was Zach Moss. You take away that Zach Moss fumble, that's almost a perfect Buffalo Bills game. When was the last time we saw that, my friend?
It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we have been this positive about a Bills team moving forward this late in the season, especially in December. It's December 8th, December 9th. I don't even know what I don't even know what day it is. I'm so excited for this game coming up and so excited for this performance that we just saw. And as I got on the header here, the aftermath of the Bills' epic performance on Monday Night Football, Kurt, we have all the mainstream media is talking about us. This is uncharted territory for Buffalo guys like us who have covered this team. You cover it with Buffalo Rumblings and myself as a podcaster. Can you remember a time where the national media has been buying into the Buffalo Bills like this since the Kelly days? I can't think of one.
No, I really can't. You can't. The only time was maybe, Tyrod Taylor's taking them to a miracle game in a wild card game. They finally broke the streak. But this is different. This is, the division is theirs. They have their quarterback. Everybody except for Nick Wright on this planet believes in Josh Allen, it seems. So it's weird to see. It's kind of don't mention his name on this podcast. But it's uncharted territory. But so is all of 2020. So this is it's a good feeling to be on this side of the national media.
Now, I'm glad you brought up the pessimistic sports analyst known as Nick Wright, who was just throwing so much shade at Josh Allen on that FS1 show. I can't even think of the name of it, to be honest with you. I've never watched it, and I'm not throwing shade back at Nick Wright and saying that. I've just never watched it. So for Nick Wright to throw shade at Josh Allen after what you believe is Josh Allen's best game and what I believe is Josh Allen's best game, Kurt, I still believe that there is this underlying hater issue with Josh Allen. Do we question the legitimacy of Josh Allen as a franchise quarterback after that game? I don't know how anybody could. How can anyone question this anymore?
I'll tell you how they can. I'll tell you why they can. It's because they don't watch him. It's because, since he was drafted, the moment he was drafted, all they've known is this guy can't hit the broadside of a barn. I mean, it's just the national media that has been following him, that maybe has watched, one or two games by him that maybe he didn't have his best performance. But how can you say that after watching this game against the 49ers? I would love to just sit down with him and just try to pick his brain and understand why, because it blows my mind. Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills finally found their franchise quarterback. I will go on record. I'm putting my right hand up. I wanted Josh Rosen at the draft, and I am so glad that I'm wrong here. So the Bills finally got it right. Josh Allen will be here for a long time.
You know what, though, Kurt? At least you have the cojones to admit that you did want Josh Rosen. Believe it or not, there are people out there that won't admit now that they wanted Josh Rosen, and they say, "Oh, I wanted Josh Allen all along," and they're trying to, they're trying to lie and try to make up for their misjudgment of what is, I think, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for many years to come. In Josh Allen, we're only starting to see him grasp his full potential.
I think so. And I mean, you look at the draft class that came in around him. I mean, you see Baker Mayfield. He's getting it together. He's a little bit. He's I'm still not bought in on Baker Mayfield. Sam Darnold, I honestly can't put a judge on him yet, just because of the moronic coaching staff that they have there with the Jets. So for his sake, I hope he gets out of there. I hope he can do okay. Lamar Jackson, he had the fun year last year. We saw him running. We saw him spinning. He's not a throwing quarterback. He's not a Josh Allen type quarterback. I think Josh Allen in 5-10 years, we'll look back at this draft and we'll say he is by far the best quarterback to come out of this draft. And that is just wild to think after everything that we've been through these past 3 years since he's been drafted. So I'm excited to see where this guy's future is going to go.
I won't name names, but my buddy Eric, he's a big fan of the show. We were watching the draft together 2018, and I was on record. You can go back, look at the Thomas Take archives, as I like to call it. I really wanted Josh Allen, not just for the Buffalo Bills, but for the city of Buffalo. And I took a lot of flack for it, took a lot of heat for it. And, I still am a little bit. I for whatever reason, I just don't get, Kurt, why there are still Josh Allen haters out there. I posted a graphic today of Josh Allen's first 39 career games. His numbers are almost identical to Pro Football Hall of Famer and Bills legend Jim Kelly. I mean, I know it's a different era, different time, different different things take place now in the NFL than what they did in the 80s and 90s. But I mean, what can we say about Josh Allen that hasn't already been said? I feel like we're at that point now where we can't dismiss him anymore.
I think a lot of it too is, people came into this so strong on their beliefs that this guy was going to be a bust, so strong in their beliefs that they're right, this guy's not going to pan out, and they don't want to admit that they're wrong. And I don't get that. I don't understand that as, a sports fan. You can't predict. These guys on ESPN don't even know what they're talking about half the time. They're just, they have their opinions. Half the time they're wrong, but we still like to watch them and believe in them. But it's just people not wanting to admit that they're wrong, and I will admit that I was wrong. So I credit you for believing in him from the start.
I tip the cap. I thought that going into Allen's rookie year, he wouldn't play it down. He'd sit. And I remember going to the training camp his rookie year, and I thought, this guy's a lot better than what we're hearing. I thought this guy's much better than, obviously seeing somebody practice in person, seeing somebody play a game in person is something completely different than just the, ESPN fodder and NFL Network and all the talking points, and seeing him just really look, it's almost as if these last few seasons, the last 2 years specifically, it's not even just Allen's performance in the statistics. It's literally his body language. I see confidence on his face. You see the passion on his face and just this look in his eye that he just knows what he is doing out there. It sounds so simple, but it's come a long way.
For once in the past 20 years, we have faith in a quarterback when you're down 6 points in the fourth quarter. That, hey, you know what? 9 times out of 10, I think we're going to come back and win this game. And we've seen that. We saw that with the Arizona game, and that kind of. I wish the Hail Mary didn't happen, because that game, that play, me and everybody in Bills Mafia, but that play to Stephon Diggs, just an incredible play, an incredible drive, and it just kind of gets forgotten about. And that's just a small example of what we have here in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And like you said, I mean, he just looks so calm. And I think that's what a big step forward that he had this year is he just looks so poised in the pocket. You know, when you see the pressure come at him, he doesn't panic. When he was a rookie his first couple of years, you know, he might immediately think to run. He steps up, you know, he looks right, looks left, and then maybe he'll run, or he'll just throw it out of bounds. I've noticed that a lot this year too, is he's learning to throw it out of bounds and not always, you know, take a sack or just take a big hit when he's trying to run.
Yeah, I've noticed too. He does what Tom Brady is known to do when you're running a screen or there's a receiver right within 3-5 yards in front of you. You throw it at your offensive lineman's butt or throw it at his leg. I've seen Josh Allen do that a bunch of times, and that is just pure smarts out there. And Josh Allen learning and looking at the numbers. I mean, the biggest criticism of Allen coming out of Wyoming, I remember hearing it. I mean, we heard it almost every day when they looked at that 2018 draft class, was his completion percentage. 58% completion percentage or 52 in the 50s. Wasn't high in Wyoming, wasn't high as rookie or wasn't high as second year, but now 69.9% completion percentage. I think completion percentage is a little bit over analyzed. I think it's in terms of how I look at stats, I'm not really rating completion percentage as the highest on my priority list in terms of success, but we do see a difference in that completion percentage being higher. Look at all these other statistical categories: 3,400 passing yards, 26 passing TDs, only 8 interceptions. What would you attribute, outside of what we've talked about and Allen being more confident, more calm out there, what would you attribute to this just massive leap in terms of his success from year 2 to year 3?
You know, I think it's a big part of it is just the continuity. I mean, he comes in and he has Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones to throw the ball to. We see what Brandon Beane and his staff has built around him. I mean, even last year with just John Brown and Cole Beasley, his numbers jumped from the year before. And now you add in Stephon Diggs, a superstar talent with 2 years in the bag with John Brown and Cole Beasley. And, you know, he has people to rely on. He knows he doesn't have to do it himself. He knows he can trust his offensive coordinator because those two are pretty much just hand in hand throughout the whole game. And I think it's just the trust factor. You know, he trusts his guys. He knows that his guys will run through a brick wall after going through a bar fight with him. He knows he has the trust from everybody on that team. And that goes a long way. I mean, you can have Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, and Stephon Diggs on the same team, but if they don't trust you, you're not going far. I mean, it's a team game. We see what Sean McDermott has built with this team, the culture that they have, and I mean, you think of what's to come in the next few years here with more added talent, maybe an added run game that can actually be productive and win games for them in the next few years here. He should stay at the top of the leaderboard for top quarterbacks in the league for years to come here.
Yeah, knowing that this is only year 3. I mean, that's the best part about it. It's only year 3, and Allen has been this successful here in his 3rd season. He's taken such a massive leap from year 2 to year 3. I think it's continuity with Allen, Ken Dorsey, and Brian Daboll to what you were saying, and I also can't state it enough. I mean, I have a question in regards to this statement, but I think the acquisition of Stephon Diggs was just – I can't even put up a word with it. It was so crucial to the success of this team. Where does this acquisition, the acquisition of Stephon Diggs, rank to you in the history of this team, especially recent history? I can't think of another acquisition that is bigger than this one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the biggest name that you think of before Stephon Diggs is somebody like, they bring in T.O. or they bring in Mario Williams for Mario Williams Day. But this was the perfect fit at the perfect time, the perfect player. And, you bring in T.O. and Mario Williams back in the days when you're finishing 8-8, 9-7, you're not doing anything. You don't have a quarterback. You barely have a coach. You barely have a team around these guys. You have everything. You were missing a star number 1 wide receiver, and you bring it in. You get it, and it works flawlessly from the gate. And I think, we'll look back in 10 years, and hopefully there'll be a nice Lombardi trophy sitting in the case. But I think Stephon Diggs, I mean, he's about to break the single-season build record in his very first year. So him and Josh Allen, their connection going down this final stretch and into the future here in the next few years is going to be extremely, extremely fun to watch.
And it's always great when not only are the Bills doing great in reality, but when you take part in that in the fantasy football realm like I did. I took Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen back-to-back in the 5th and 6th round. That was smart. It was risky at the time.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably got some flack for that too, but that's a smart pick. You can rub it in their face now.
I did, and that was one of those live draft parties where you're sitting there in your buddy's garage and you announce your pick and you're like, "Yeah, I'm picking 2 picks in a row. Let's just go Diggs and Allen." Everybody was laughing, saying I was a homer. Now I'm 11-2. Who's laughing? Who's laughing?
Love it.
So that makes things better as well. Obviously, I think John Brown is really crucial to this team. He's been out, but you have 2 guys that have stepped up immensely in this offense, and that is not so measly Cole Beasley, one of the best slot receivers, I think, in the NFL right now, and one of the best slot receivers really over the course of his career with what he did in Dallas and now what he's doing here in Buffalo. How crucial is Cole Beasley to this offense? Is he's closing in on 1,000 receiving yards this season?
I know, and it's so fun to watch that. You know, a lot of teams just have the one guy. It's, you know, for the Bills, it would be, oh, they only have Stephon Diggs to throw to. If he goes down, what are you going to do? Oh, if Stephon Diggs goes down, oh, they got Gabe Davis on one side, the young rookie who's really showing out. They have Cole Beasley in the slot who is always open. And then when John Brown's healthy, he's a number 1 wide receiver in himself. So, I mean, this team is just so deep, but having Cole Beasley on that field, he's kind of, you know, he's what Wes Welker, Julian Edelman was to Tom Brady back in the day. He was the guy that is always going to be open. You know that even if you need 2 yards, you can get it to him. He'll get you 2, even if it's behind the line of scrimmage. He'll somehow sneaky find his way to get 2 yards. So it's fun to watch this guy. I mean, he's just so quick. He's always open. I don't know if you saw the CBS stat that they tweeted out today. But for nobody that saw it, I'll read it off here from CBS.
Read it off.
Cole Beasley has more yards than A.J. Brown, the great wide receiver for Tennessee, more receiving yards than or more receptions than DK Metcalf, more yards per reception than DeAndre Hopkins, more touchdowns than Julio Jones, and more 100-yard games than Tyreek Hill. And this guy doesn't get enough love. So we're here to shed some light on Cole Beasley and the fantastic season that he's having, because he is just so important to this offense.
To go back to when they first got him and when there was Buffalo rumblings, pun intended, Buffalo rumblings in regards to the Bills looking at Cole Beasley, bringing him in. They were interested in Cole Beasley and they were interested in Jamison Crowder. That was the rumor that was circulating. Crowder went to the Jets, and it left Beasley and Adam Humphries at the table for Buffalo to kind of weigh the odds. I'm so thankful that they brought in Cole Beasley, because I think the veteran smarts at the wide receiver position was very much needed in this offense, especially for a young quarterback in Josh Allen. I think Cole Beasley, while Stephon Diggs is the most dynamic receiver that they have, I would say Cole Beasley is the smartest in terms of his ability to get that extra 2, as you said, and to find that wiggle room within the middle of the field. I am just so over the moon with him.
Yeah, his field vision, you know, his IQ on the field to get open, to find the ball. His ball skills in itself are top-notch in the league. And, I mean, like you said, I think Dallas didn't use him right. I mean, he was productive in Dallas. They didn't use him right. I mean, we never saw the numbers that he was putting up the way he is now. And, I mean, he's still young. He's still got some juice in the tank, and I feel like he's been in the league forever. I feel like I remember him with the Cowboys a long time ago, but it really hasn't. And he just hasn't skipped a beat, knock on wood. I mean, he stays healthy most of the time, and he's just that kind of scapegoat cover blanket that Josh Allen can trust and believe in any down on the field.
Yeah, he's 31 years old. For a wide receiver, you still got a solid, 2, 3, maybe 4 years left if you're still playing at this rate. And as you mentioned, almost to Cole Beasley's success now, the fact that he wasn't really used the right way in Dallas, it's actually added a little bit more of a shelf life, a little bit longer of a shelf life in his career. And now, I remember reading, I guess you could say in the offseason, I should say, and prior to the season starting, that Tony Romo worked with Josh Allen a lot over the offseason, as well as Jordan Palmer. I guarantee Tony Romo was telling Josh Allen, you got to get the ball to number 11. You have to find a way to get him the ball. Because last year, Allen and Cole Beasley were not really as in sync as Allen and Brown were.
Right.
And almost Brown coming out of the lineup has allowed Beasley and Allen, I would say, to become more acclimated and get that playing time. So I've just been the way that this offense has been so balanced, giving credit where credit is due. The biggest anomaly that I look at within this offense is that rookie wide receiver Gabe Davis leads the Bills in receiving touchdowns. That is 5 touchdowns on 25 catches. That is ridiculous to me. Like that is mind-blowing.
And I mean, we saw the highlight videos. The only thing we could hold on to during quarantine and training camp there was the one-handed catches, the Moss type catches in the end zone, and it was like, whoa, we might have stolen this guy. Because I'll be honest, I mean, during the draft, they drafted him. I was like, oh, okay, this is a nice player. I like this guy. He might be a good, number 4 guy coming in here and there. But I mean, when John Brown went out, I was not worried. I was like, yeah, get him healthy. We have Gabe Davis. This guy is, maybe not as fast as John Brown, but he is extremely capable. Some of the things that he does on this field, it looks like he's been in the league for 5-10 years.
Yeah, I think from a physicality standpoint, I saw Gabe Davis out muscling guys like Richard Sherman when Sherman was lined up on him. Maybe he didn't get targeted on those plays, but you'd see it on the corner of your screen like, wow, this guy is not only just a physical receiver, but he's very smart for a rookie in this league. I think he knows his role, and I think he's playing within his role really well. So that's another name that I wanted to throw out there. Giving credit where credit is due, adding on to, obviously we're talking about this offense and the fact that this offense has taken massive leaps from Allen's second year to the third season and Diggs and everything that we've discussed. I have to somewhat eat some crow and give credit where credit is due. Last season, Kurt, I was at times very frustrated with Brian Daboll in terms of just his situational play calling. And I think a lot of Bills fans shared the same sentiment as me. They needed another dynamic weapon. Maybe they get that with Stephon Diggs, and that is a major reason I think that was missing in last year's offense. But I mean, this year, Brian Daboll has done a hell of a job. I cannot, overlook that. And I've been giving him credit every single week. But talking to you about it on the show here, what do you think the chances are that Daboll does leave Buffalo with how successful this offense has been? And if so, do you think this offense could miss a beat without him?
I think losing Brian Daboll would hurt a little bit. I don't think it would ruin the team by any means, but him and Josh Allen are just so close. Him and it seems like the entire offense are just so close. It seems like they love this guy. They love playing for this guy. And I mean, how can you not? It's not like, they're a run-heavy team. We don't focus on our wide receivers or, focus on one guy the entire game. He spreads the love. I mean, and the fun trick plays that he adds in there. It's we've seen Cole Beasley throw a touchdown. We've seen John Brown. We've seen Isaiah McKenzie throw touchdowns. I mean, these guys got to love it. They got to be having fun because it's different. It's not, the same old, run a post route 10 yards and then that's it. We'll get a completion. He likes to spice it up and he likes to keep it, keep the defense on their toes. And that's what it's all about. I mean, you can't blame him if he wants to go get a head coaching job. For most of these guys, that's probably been their dream for the past 20, 30 years. So you can't blame them. My only thing, kind of my thinking to counteract that is if you're Brian Daboll and let's say, let's just say the New York Jets hit you up after they fire Adam Gase, because they probably will, even though I don't want them to. But let's just say they hit up Brian Daboll and they're like, we need you as a head coach. And this is his only head coaching opportunity. My counteractive argument here is, if you're him, why would you want to go to a team that just maybe went 0-16 and leave a potential Super Bowl ring for a team like the Jets? So, maybe if a team like the Chargers opens up, that's a good opportunity for him. But I think they'll be okay if he leaves. I really don't think, I have faith in this front office. I have faith in the coaching staff. But I think that, Josh Allen would definitely miss him. And I was skeptical on him too. After that playoff game last year in Houston, I didn't love what I saw. I really didn't. And he was a little inconsistent last year, but this year he really stepped it up and he's done what he had to do. I mean, we kind of saw that in the Seattle game. It's like, okay, the run game's not working. Let's just throw the hell out of the ball and see what happens. And look what we did. So I like Brian Dable. I really do hope that he sticks around.
Yeah, in particular, the game that really made me furious was that playoff game when you have that lead and you kind of squander it due to the fact that you're throwing the ball. We've seen that sometimes in these games this season where they have these leads in these games and they let the opposing team hang around in it a little too long. You can even make the argument that they did that with the 49ers, 34-24. The score was a lot closer than really what the game should have been. But then it sounds like I'm being nitpicky in saying that. A win is a win, and God dang it, 21 years. It's been 21 years since they won on Monday Night Football, so I'm not complaining whatsoever about that game Monday night. But looking to the future here, we got a really, really big game. We're on to Pittsburgh as the Steelers head to Orchard Park, New York to take on the big, bad Buffalo Bills, this time on Sunday Night Football.
Yes,
I think this is a very tough matchup for the Bills, and I think it's a tough matchup for the Steelers. One of the reasons I think this is a tough matchup, Kurt, this Steelers pass defense is pretty damn good. I think that's the strength of their defense. What do you say to that? How do you think Buffalo will attack the Steelers?
So, the Steelers defense is great this year. There's no way around it. You can't argue that because everything that we've seen from this team is run through that defense. They win games by their defense. And, you hate to see any injuries with Bud Dupree and Devin Bush, but those two missing are huge blows to that defense. I mean, Bud Dupree and TJ Watt coming on the outside are terrifying for any starting quarterback, I would think. So, now that they have Alex Highsmith on the other side, he didn't do a whole lot against Washington. So it's really going to be, hone in on TJ Watt, keep him contained, and they should be okay. The Bills offensive line looked good against the 49ers, and they've looked good for the majority of the season. They've had some times where, they might leave Josh Allen out to dry, but for the most part, they give him more time than most teams in the NFL to throw the ball. And it's just that secondary you got to watch for. You got Joe Hayden on one side, Steven Nelson on the other, and then Minkah Fitzpatrick over top. That's scary. And, Josh Allen has to be on his A game to win this game. I don't know exactly the status of Joe Hayden. He got hurt in their last game against Washington. I'm not sure if he'll be good to go. I know Steven Nelson was dealing with an injury too. But I had Steven Nelson on my podcast a few weeks back, maybe 2 weeks back. And of course I had to bring up the Bills a little bit. So I was like, the Bills game is down the line a little bit here, but what are you seeing from Josh Allen? And he even said himself, he said, from what we saw last year, this guy looks like a completely different quarterback. He's playing at an MVP caliber right now. And he said, they have to be on their A game. But, not having John Brown kind of hurts against that secondary. But if you can I think they can control them on defense. I think the Bills can control them on their defensive side of the ball. The Bills really only need to maybe score 30, 35 points. I think they could win. I really do.
It's one of those games where I think this is the ultimate test for the Bills, and not in the sense knowing that the Steelers have a great passing defense. We know that the Steelers have a great passing defense. We know that Buffalo is a great passing offense. If that is the case, it's almost like in a boxing match or in what I like to cover on the show, an MMA fight. When you have two great wrestlers, oftentimes it starts to brawl. So if you have a great passing offense and a great passing defense going head to head on both sides for both teams, I think we're going to have to see this Bills offense start to run the football in this game. We're going to have to see some resemblance of a solid rushing offense. And that is the only thing I think this whole season that I can point to with the Buffalo Bills on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, we didn't get quite into that yet, but we will. What do you think the Bills have to do to establish this run game against the Steelers early on?
It's tough, and the Steelers' defensive line is pretty solid. I mean, even without Bud Dupree, they have some very nice pieces up the front at the D tackle position. And, it's tough to run on one side if TJ Watt is there. But, I mean, you look up the middle, they got Stephon Tuitt, they have Cam Hayward in there, and they're going to, collapse some holes. It's going to be tough to get the run game going. But they need to. I mean, I would like to see the Bills run the ball maybe upwards of 20 times because they know that the Bills are going to throw the ball. That's where they're going to feast. They're going to cover the wide receivers heavy. They're going to cover them tight. They're not going to give Josh Allen room to beat him over the top because they know he can do it. So if you can establish a little bit of a run game, just get Singletary, a couple bursts of 10 yards, that defense might cheat in a little bit. They might have to buy into the run a little bit, and that'll open up the pass offense. And it kills me because I really, really thought Devin Singletary was going to have a huge year this year. I was banking on it. And with this offensive line, maybe you can blame it on the continuity. They haven't all been healthy the entire season. I hope maybe that's why Singletary hasn't flourished too much. But I think, I don't know, this could be the game that we see them use that run game heavy. It would be huge. I think to open up that pass game, you need to get the run game going. Steelers are, I think, maybe top 10 in the league in the run defense. So they have some good linebackers. But Zach Moss, make up for your mistake last week. I mean, we saw him pretty much sit 3 whole quarters and then come in. So maybe this is the game that he has his coming out party.
I like that thought. Make up for your mistake, Zach Moss. I mean, it was a little bit of a gaffe, but you know what? It happened. Leave it in the past and look forward, onward and upward to Pittsburgh, playing against Pittsburgh in Orchard Park. I think Stephon Tuitt as well is one of those guys on the Steelers defense that is just a fierce guy on that side of the ball for the Steelers. And if we're able to run the football, it's just football 101 common sense. If you're able to run the football, you keep the opposing offense off the field.
Exactly.
And Big Ben seems like he's an ageless wonder. He's been bumped and bruised and nicked, poked and prodded under the knife a bunch of times because of the injuries that he's had. And he's still relevant in this league. He's still putting up good numbers in this league. The one thing about the Steelers, too, though, is they haven't really been able to establish much of a rushing offense this year. They're one of the lower-rated rushing offenses in the league, even with James Conner and Benny Snell. So I think, what do you say as far as the score to this game? You think that the Bills are going to have to put up over 30 to win it?
I think so. I mean, we look at what the Steelers have done this year. Pretty much every game, I mean, they've won 11 games. Pretty much all the games that they've won, they've scored around the 25-point mark, and their defense can hold the other team to under 25. So, if the Bills can score 30, which I really think they can, if they can score 30 on that Steelers defense, I'm really not too threatened by that Steelers offense, and I'll tell you why, because it seems like Mike Tomlin almost refuses to run the ball. And, it's James Conner was out last week. I think he'll be back this week. Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, who was my draft crush before last April. I wanted the Bills to take him, but they're nice pieces. But against Washington, I think they ran the ball 14 times. One of those times was Big Ben on a rush, so they really don't run the ball too much. So that's going to give the Bills defense an opportunity, a fully healthy secondary, to have tight coverage on the Steelers wide receivers. And that Big Ben's going to get the ball out quick. He's going to do the quick slants. He doesn't beat you over the middle. He's not going to throw deep. Every time that he throws over 20 yards, it's usually outside the numbers. If his wide receiver doesn't catch it, it goes out of bounds. So I think the Bills defense really, really matches up well against the Steelers offense. They know that they're not going to run the ball that much, so they can sell out on the pass. Big Ben gets the ball out faster than pretty much any quarterback in this league. So tight coverage, maybe rush 4 and drop the rest and just be in coverage, because this Steelers offense, they win a lot of games, but they really, Big Ben's not the player that he used to be.
Right. He isn't the player he used to be. It's known fact that you go back to, his highlights and you're like, this guy, the injury bug has bitten him a few times, more than a few times. So I think that this is a winnable game. And I mean, if you're looking at one of the hotter offenses in the league, Buffalo is the hottest offense in the league right now. So I think outside of Kansas City, I would say that if Buffalo can put up 30 on the Pittsburgh Steelers and one of the best pass defenses in the league, if you thought I was excited about this Monday Night Football win, oh my God, I'd be over the moon.
Josh Allen could top his top game this week, just 1 week after. He could have the best performance of his life if he beats the Steelers here.
That was one of my Thomas takeaways. It's a segment I do on the show. That was one of my segments, is that Josh Allen's had 4 of his best games in his career this year, and he just outdoes himself after every one. It is just truly just a fantastic season from him, and I'm just so excited for the future.
I think I saw a stat somewhere that said he's the first player since 2013 Drew Brees to have, what was it, 3? I don't know if it was 3 or 4 games where he had over 300 yards passing, over 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's crazy what this guy's doing. It really, really, I thought he was going to have a good year. He blew my expectations. He just blew them out of the water, and he's been having a better year than I thought he would.
I expected him to take a step. I didn't expect him to take a leap. And oddly enough, I watched Josh Allen's interview that he did with Pat McAfee on Pat McAfee's show. And Pat McAfee's such a character. I enjoy that show. But he talked about how he had Kyle Allen, Sam Darnold, and Joe Burrow. They were all in a line during Jordan Palmer's, QB camp, if you will. And Josh Allen was last in line. They were doing throwing evaluations for the first time since the last practice that they had. And Kyle Allen, Darnold, and Burrow all threw with their hip. And, Jordan Palmer was like, that's the way to throw the ball. Drive with your hip, torque your hip, and, don't just use your whole arm, use your whole body. Point the shoulder and throw. Josh Allen steps up. He's the last one to throw, and Josh Allen's throwing with his arm. And even the throws with just his arm, not even using his hip, the ball was getting there. But Jordan Palmer basically said if you use your hip, it'll make it that much more accurate, put that much more controlled velocity on the throw. And you watch his highlights from last year, you watch him week to week this season, his throwing motion is very, very different. It's alarming that he was able to make this massive adjustment in one offseason.
And I think a big part of it, like the first thing that I noticed right from training camp was a big thing. I feel like he's not tilting as much when he throws, because last year we saw him overthrow pretty much every deep ball he had. And he was really, his shoulders were real tilted. And this year it seems like he's kind of evened out a little bit, and he trusts his strength. He doesn't have to, put his whole body into it, because then I think that's where he starts overthrowing guys. This way that he's doing it seems to be working just fine, because he's been consistently hitting the deep ball this year. And I love to see it.
Over under a year or two when Jordan Palmer gets a job in the National Football League as a quarterback coach.
Honestly, after what Josh Allen has been doing, this guy deserves a lot of credit.
He's working with Allen, with Burrow. Deshaun Watson just showed up wearing a big mask. They didn't even know who it was, and he just walked out on the field. He's like, I need some lessons too.
Good for him. That's awesome. Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. But I have one last topic to talk about, and it is this AFC East Division. I stated prior to the season starting that I really believe the Bills will take this division for the first time since 1995. We're atop the AFC East at 9-3, but those damn Miami Dolphins are nipping at our heels. For whatever reason, I don't know why the Dolphins are 8-4. I know their defense has been good, but 8-4, come on. Let's be real here. The 2020 Miami Dolphins, are they a reason to worry, Kurt? Are you worried about the Dolphins?
If you would have asked me a couple of weeks ago when they're on their little bit of a streak, I would have been a little bit worried. And I'm not brushing them off, because they are 8-4. They've looked very good on defense, but you look at their schedule too. It's been difficult, but it hasn't been, it was a little, I'll say a little bit of a cakewalk too. They've had some easy games in there. They've had some easy breaks. And, with Tua Tagovailoa in there at quarterback, I expected to see a whole lot more from him. I have not been too impressed. If Ryan Fitzpatrick was in there, you have a 50-50 shot. You're either going to run the table and win out for the rest of the year, or you'll go 0-4 and he'll have 15 interceptions in those 4 games. But, they have a very, very hard final 4 games here. I mean, they have Kansas City this week, they have New England, then they have Las Vegas, and then they have the Bills. So those are 4 games where I could honestly see them losing all 4. I could see them maybe squeaking out 1 or 2. New England's kind of iffy. They've been, really high, blowing out teams 45-0, and then they've been really low, just losing a bunch of games and looking god-awful, which I love to see. But and then they have Vegas. Vegas is kind of a weird team too. I like Vegas this year. I was pretty impressed by them at the midway point of the season. So that's a huge game. I mean, that game itself, the winner of that could be in the playoffs. So both teams are going to be playing as hard as they can. I'm not too worried about the Dolphins for the division. I think Dolphins might be able to sneak into a playoff spot. Maybe the Bills will see them in the playoffs, but I don't see them winning the division, just because, with the Bills' final remaining games here, they could pretty much run the table itself too. So Don't worry, Bills Mafia. I think the division. I think we'll finally get that banner at what is it now? The Bills Stadium, not Ralph Wilson, not New Era. So we got the banner.
I hope we get a banner if they win this division. I want to get like a T-shirt, or a hoodie.
I'm getting everything.
It's like a memorable moment. It hasn't happened in 1995 was the last time this happened. I was 3 years old, for Pete's sake. So it's isn't that crazy too? Like with how successful they have been, we hear all of these stats. This is the first time they've done this since 1990 to 92. The first time they've gone 9-3 2 years in a row. It's just, I mean, the peaks and valleys that this franchise has gone through. It's either all or nothing with the Buffalo Bills. Like over the course of their whole franchise, not even Jim Kelly era, like way before that. It's pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, we got the highest of highs of going to 4 straight Super Bowls, even though they didn't win. I mean, no other team might ever do that. But, they got the highest of the highs, and you got the past 20 years, which has been the lowest of the maybe I'll say the past 16 years of the lowest of the low.
Right.
But, I think this team, this is the best team that we've had in 20 years. This is the best team. Maybe, it would rival a Super Bowl team. It's a different era, but if Brandon Beane sticks around, which he very well should, and I would bet a lot of money that he will, this team is in good hands. They really are. They're a few pieces away from possibly being a Kansas City Chiefs or maybe even becoming a dynasty team. I could go on a ledge and say that.
Man, dynasty. They were a dynasty once. I mean, going to 4 straight Super Bowls, that's a dynasty in my opinion. Even though you didn't win one, that's a powerhouse team.
I would say
knowing that, the future of the AFC is what it is with Kansas City, who is that dance partner? Looks like it's going to be Buffalo if you're looking in the future. But I can't wait to see how this season finishes out. If they're able to pull off winning this division, is Allen going to throw for another 1,000 yards in these next 4 games? It's very likely. He's coming for Drew Bledsoe's single season passing record too. So I'm pumped up. Any last words for the audience on the show, Kurt? Any expectations that you have in regards to the Bills season? What about this Bills defense? What are your thoughts on this defense and how it can kind of get on the right track against Pittsburgh?
I think we're finally seeing the defense that we've been waiting to see. The start of the year, I mean, this year's just been extremely wacky. I mean, we didn't have training camp. We did have training camp. We barely had preseason. So it's going to take a little while to get it going. And, it took them maybe a little bit longer than we wanted to, but I think we're finally seeing it. They're healthy, knock on wood. Hopefully they stay healthy for the final stretch here. And we see a healthy Tremaine Edmonds. We see what he can do when he's healthy because he didn't look like the Tremaine Edmonds of old. And we see Matt Milano coming back. We see A.J. Klein, what happened to him? I mean, he just blew up out of nowhere, and we're all loving it. So I think those 3 guys there are going to be key for this final stretch. A healthy secondary, Josh Norman, I'm sure he's still thinking about that Derrick Henry stiff arm, but he's a good piece on this secondary. Tre'Davious White is all-pro once again. Jordan Poyer should be all-pro again too. I mean, they're a very, very talented defense, and I hope that this offseason, I hope maybe in the draft or free agency they can bring in a really nice piece for this defensive line because I think that'll just bring it all together. But I've loved what I've seen from A.J. Epinesa. Jerry Hughes been having a great year. Ed Oliver's been having a great year, even though you could ask a Joe Schmo on the street. He'll say, he doesn't put up the numbers. He's having a good year. This defense is coming around at the right time. And I think this might be a good showing out party against the 11-1 Pittsburgh Steelers.
I loved what they were able to do Monday night in terms of stopping Raheem Mostert. I was very worried about Raheem Mostert due to the fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked like Barry Sanders against us when we played the Kansas City Chiefs. So I thought that, this Bills run defense was suspect, and they showed up Monday night. So building on that performance, it's coming at the right time. These last few, 3-4 weeks of the season here, this upward trajectory that we're seeing from this Bills defense, in particular with the run defense, perfect timing. Hopefully it continues. And obviously, the Steelers, I think, are the toughest matchup that we have the rest of the season. I know that the Patriots are always kind of tough as an interdivision matchup for us, but that team is a shell of itself. I know they're coming off of that 45-0 victory, but that was one of the worst coaching performances I've probably seen. I love Anthony Lynn, but that Chargers team just looked lost out there.
They did.
And they just couldn't get their wind in their sails. So, I think that the Pittsburgh game is the toughest game this year, and I think that this defense is still a top 10-ish defense. If they can stay that way throughout the rest of the season, maybe we're talking 12-4, maybe we're talking 13-3.
Hey, I'm not going to argue that. I mean, if they beat the Steelers this week, I see no reason why, they shouldn't run the table. Denver's nothing to be worried about. New England, yeah, they could catch some fire and maybe have a good game. I mean, they were a fumble away from possibly beating the Bills a few weeks back. And who knows? I mean, if that Miami game matters, it shouldn't. If if everything goes right, if that Miami game matters, I think they should beat Miami. But you never know. I did see one more thing here. The Bills can clinch a playoff spot this weekend. I saw it right before I came on. Adam Schefter tweeted it out. So I'll tell you what needs to happen. So a lot needs to happen. So the Bills need to win. They need to beat Pittsburgh. Baltimore needs to lose. Miami needs to lose. Las Vegas needs to lose. And New England needs to lose. So 5 things need to happen. So it's no guarantee, but we've seen wilder things. So the Bills very well could lock up a playoff spot this weekend.
I think that if the Bills can win 3 out of their next 4, I'm gonna be on record. If the Bills can win 3 out of their next 4, the 3 of the last 4 games, I think going into the AFC playoffs, you would be out of your mind if you said the Bills weren't the toughest tests for the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. I really believe. And I'm looking at that not just from a Bills fan perspective, but from a football, looking at the whole, AFC as a whole, I should say. Tennessee doesn't scare me. Ryan Tannehill is not that good. No. I don't think he's what he has. He's shown up. He showed up in some games, showed up and showed out. But I don't think that Tennessee is a team that I'm afraid of. I thought that game against Buffalo was just an unmitigated disaster on our end. It just wasn't so much Tennessee; it was more us.
It was
that game.
Bad circumstances,
but
bad
in Baltimore.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah,
got a little lag.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree 100%. And in Baltimore too, I think that Lamar. What do you think of Lamar Jackson? Like, if we were to end the show, because that's a team that I think is one of those teams that's in our crosshairs in the AFC picture. What do you think of Lamar Jackson throughout these first few years?
I would love to face Baltimore in the playoffs. I really would. And if I would have said that a year ago, I think people probably would have run me out of the city. But Lamar Jackson, I should say that Baltimore offense doesn't scare me. When we saw the Bills play Baltimore last year, that was peak Lamar Jackson. And he had a great year last year. There's no denying that. But he's not a dual threat quarterback. He will run the ball. He'll run the ball 60 yards himself down the field, or the Ravens offense will run the ball 60 yards, and then he'll somehow find a way to throw it to his tight end. They don't have the weapons on offense. Marquise Brown's been a decent piece, not worth a first-round pick. They have Willie Snead. Mark Andrews is really the only threat they have on that offense, and I think the Bills would match up great against them, and I would love to play them in the first round. But no, Lamar Jackson, he can't throw the ball downfield. He's not going to win the big games. He's shown that he can't beat the good teams this year, at least, and even last year in the playoffs. I think the Bills. I would like that. And the other team that a couple weeks ago I said I would like to see the Bills play is Cleveland. But I don't know, after that big Tennessee win, they kind of scare me a little bit. But how cool would that be? Both teams have been struggling for 20 years. They finally beat their playoff streak or their playoff drought, and we meet in the playoffs. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I don't know. Cleveland's a little bit of a scary team now, I think. I'll have to see how they play against Baltimore this week.
Cleveland's a team that just scares me in general. Like, even without the Tennessee game, they lost to Cleveland last year. That game was, oh my God, that game was so frustrating. I won't even go into that. Baker Mayfield's one of those guys that one week he looks like a world beater, and the next week he looks like he doesn't even belong. It's very odd, the performances that Baker Mayfield can put up or not put up. And obviously this defense in Cleveland is very good as well. So I think it's so refreshing, though, Kurt, and I think you would agree with me on this, to have the Bills, the Browns, some of these teams Titans that have been pretty bad over the course of the last 20 years finally somewhat stepping up. Even Baltimore, I know Baltimore won a Super Bowl a few years back, but they're a completely different team than what they were for winning that Super Bowl. So a change of the guard is very much needed in the AFC, and I'm happy that Buffalo's a big part of it.
I think what you're trying to get at here is that New England is not at the top of the standings anymore, which I can agree with. Get them out of here. Get them out of my sight. I don't want to see them in a playoff game ever again. But no, it is refreshing. I mean, you even look at a team like Kansas City. I mean, they were always kind of in it. They were always with Alex Smith as their quarterback. They were in playoff contention. Now, I mean, they're going to be Super Bowl contenders for as long as Patrick Mahomes is under contract. So it is refreshing, and I'm glad that the Bills are finally involved in that for sure.
Going around the NFL and talking about the Steelers being our opponent this week, you mentioned they won 11 games, but they entered this game 11-1 because they lost to the Washington football team. I got to give credit to the before-mentioned Alex Smith. Not only do I think, Kurt, should he be the comeback player of the year, why don't they just name the award after him? I mean, why don't they just put his name on it, the Alex Smith Comeback Player of the Year award? I think that is the best gesture that you could give to Alex Smith.
I mean, his story is just incredible. Really, kind of the whole story of the Washington football team. I mean, you have the whole debacle of ownership and some shady things going on there, and then the team changes their name, and Alex Smith comes in after almost losing his leg. After I believe it was 11 leg surgeries, almost lost his leg. Then you have Ron Rivera, who just beat cancer. I mean, this team is it's a feel-good story. I mean, it really is. It's a bunch of young guys that are finally coming together and some coaches that maybe didn't get the best break, and they're finally having a bounce-back season. So I'm rooting for Washington. I'm hoping that they win their division this year. It's kind of between them and the Giants, but I'm rooting for them. I like their story, and I mean, Alex Smith, all credit to him. I mean, he could play horribly for the rest of the year, and I really think he should be comeback player of the year.
And I've always liked Alex Smith. Like, even when he was in San Fran, I thought he somewhat got a raw deal there, but you couldn't deny the athleticism of Colin Kaepernick, although he is still being denied. That's another topic for another day. But the fact that, Smith then goes to Kansas City to really be a placeholder for the eventual successor in Pat Mahomes, who is now the best player in the league. And then Smith finally gets his shot. He gets traded from Kansas City to the then Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team. And he has this horrifying leg injury. It's one of the worst injuries I've ever seen. And for him to come back from that, it's truly remarkable. And I'm with you there. I'm rooting for the Washington football team and hope that they can take this NFC East, which has been a pretty mediocre division, to say the least.
The fact that they get a home playoff game is a little sad, but I don't think they'll get past that first round.
I don't either. I wanted to end the show with this. We're talking about the Bills. We're going a little bit around the NFL, and to kind of bookend the show, I love to do an hour-long show. We're right at like the 52-minute mark.
Yep.
But watching this New York Jets Raiders game and seeing the Raiders kind of come back into it. They're on whatever it was, the 40-some yard line, something like that. I don't even know what yard line they were on, but they call a Hail Mary because they have to. They're trying to win this game. Greg Williams, former Buffalo Bills head coach, one of the biggest morons in the NFL. I'm shocked that this guy has had an NFL coaching career for as long as he has, given his track record, which is pretty egregious and disgusting. He calls a all-out blitz on Derek Carr, and you got one guy lined up on Henry Ruggs, which is like putting one guy on Tyreek Hill in Tampa Bay. What the hell was that?
I mean, I think it was maybe he got a phone call saying lose this game or else you're fired. But then, hey, wait, he just got fired anyway. So I don't know. I really don't. And I thought it was hilarious. I saw a video on Twitter of it was during training camp or something. He was signing autographs, and somebody asked Greg Williams, they're like, what's your favorite play to call? He goes, cover zero, all out blitz. And look at the irony now. I mean, the play that gets him fired. I don't know. I mean, they had it in the bag. You can't. And the thing, too, is the cornerback for the Jets, I think it was, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it was rookie Lamar Jackson, the cornerback, that they put on Henry Ruggs. So, I mean, rookie on rookie, one-on-one coverage and a Hail Mary. That's going to happen 9 times out of 10. And, I mean, credit to the Vegas Raiders. I mean, they pulled it off. I really didn't think they would, but they saved their playoff hopes for sure. But I pray that Adam Gase will be here next year, but I just can't imagine that he will, because I think the New York Jets fans will run him out of the city if the Jets don't fire him.
I think there will be COVID or not. The New York City governor is going to have to, or the New Jersey governor, I should say, is going to have to go down to the Jets facility and prevent a hot spot from taking place. Not to make a joke out of COVID, but in all seriousness, I see people going to the Jets facility, Jets and Giants facility, and voicing their opinions if Adam Gase remains the head coach. I can't believe that this is even a topic still, that he is actually still their coach. It is it's astounding to me. But
I can't believe that he even got the job. After what we saw, the Jets would know. I mean, they played the Dolphins twice a year. You would know that this guy can't be a head coach of a team. And I'm just very thankful for what we have here in Buffalo with Sean McDermott.
Amen to that, brother. Amen. Kurt, thank you so much for joining me, buddy. This was a real pleasure. I enjoyed having you on. I'm glad I could finally get you on. We've talked in the past about you coming on, and I'm glad we can make it happen, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Like I said, anytime I get a chance to talk just Buffalo Bills, I will do it 24 hours a day if I need to, because this is a very fun time for Bills Mafia. So hopefully everybody can enjoy this Final Four stretch here, and hopefully we'll talk soon once we're in the playoffs.
Hopefully we'll be talking. I'm predicting maybe an AFC Championship game. Let's be bold to end the show and leave people wanting more. Maybe an AFC Championship. Wouldn't that be something? That would be awesome. Thanks for hopping on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for hopping on. I look forward to, go Bills. I look forward to having you on again soon.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. That was Kurt Haumesser of Buffalo Rumblings. Not sure if we were having some connection issues there towards the end. There wasn't on my end, but I think there was on his end from me. So, unfortunately, I think we did have some sort of connection issues. But I greatly enjoyed talking with Kurt about all things Bills, not just this epic performance that took place on Monday Night Football, as well as what's ahead. Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a tough matchup, a really tough team, great front seven, and a solid pass defense. As solid as any pass defense in the National Football League. So for this red-hot Buffalo Bills passing attack, this is a true test. And I look forward to seeing whether the Bills can pass this test the way they did against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find this episode on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel, Facebook page, as well as my Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Go Bills. Stay safe, everybody. Take care.